Have you ever wanted to sew up a shirt with a loose seam, reattach a small button, or quickly mend a seam at home, but ended up spending a long time just because you could not get the thread through the needle? Especially for older people, or for those whose eyesight is no longer as clear as before, that tiny needle eye can sometimes feel very frustrating. The thread is soft, and the tip of the thread frays easily, so the more you try to thread it, the harder it becomes. Hello everyone, I'm Mary. Today I will share with you a few very simple ways to thread a needle. You do not need expensive tools, just familiar things at home such as your hand, a toothbrush, paper, and you can even make a small needle threader yourself using an old pen and a small electrical wire. Please watch each method carefully, because just one small tip may make sewing and mending at home much easier. Method 1. Thread the needle by gently rubbing the needle over the thread. The first method is very simple and almost does not require preparing anything extra. First, take the thread you want to use and lay it straight on the palm of your hand. Try to keep the thread flat, not twisted, and not curled into a loop. Then pick up the needle and turn the side with the eye downward. Place the end with the eye lightly on top of the thread lying on your palm. Now, you only need to hold the needle very gently, then rub it back and forth over the thread. There is no need to press too hard. Just let the needle eye touch the thread and move slowly a few times. When we rub it like this, the thread will be pushed upward and may slip into the eye of the needle by itself. Watch carefully, and when you see a small piece of thread has gone through the eye, use your hand to gently pull the thread end out. That means the needle has now been threaded. This method may sound strange, but once your hand gets used to it, it is very convenient. It is especially helpful when you do not want to squint and look closely at the tiny needle eye. However, to make it easier to succeed, you should use thread that is not too frayed at the end, and a needle whose eye is not too small. Method 2. Use a toothbrush to thread the needle. The second method is also very useful, and the only tool you need is a clean toothbrush. Place the toothbrush on the table with the bristles facing upward. Then lay the thread horizontally across the bristles. Make sure the thread lies straight and does not get tangled. Next, hold the needle and point the eye downward. Bring the needle eye directly over the spot where the thread is lying on the toothbrush bristles. Now, gently press the needle downward. The toothbrush bristles are springy, so when pressed down, they will push the thread upward and make it easier for the thread to go through the eye of the needle. When you see that the thread has gone through the eye, you only need to gently pull the thread through and it is done. This tip is very suitable when your hand shakes a little, or when you cannot see the needle eye clearly. The toothbrush helps keep the thread more stable, so it does not move around the way it does when you hold it by hand. If your home has an old toothbrush that is no longer used for brushing teeth, you can wash it clean, let it dry, and keep one separately in your sewing box. Every time you need to thread a needle, it will be very convenient to take it out and use it. Method 3. Use paper to hold the thread end in place. The third method is very suitable when the thread end is soft, frayed, or keeps bending down whenever it touches the needle eye. Prepare a small piece of paper. You can use plain paper, note paper, or any clean scrap paper. First, fold the small piece of paper in half to create a straight crease. Then place the end of the thread inside that fold. Next, use scissors to cut the end of the paper into a small pointed tip. At this point, the thread end is being held by the paper. Instead of trying to put a soft thread into the needle eye, now you only need to put the small pointed piece of paper, which is firmer, through the eye. Hold that pointed paper end and gently pass it through the eye of the needle. Finally, just tear away the outer paper and keep the thread in the eye of the needle. This method is very practical, especially when you are using soft thread, cotton thread, or when the thread end has frayed after cutting. Instead of trying again and again without success, you only need a small piece of paper to make everything much easier. Method 4. Hold the thread between your index finger and thumb, then move the needle toward it. The fourth method is a very worthwhile tip to try, especially when you do not have any tools nearby. First, take the thread and place the thread end between your index finger and thumb. Then use those 2 fingers to gently hold the thread in place. Note that we do not leave the thread end sticking out too long. Only let a very short piece show, almost just enough to barely see the edge of the thread between your fingertips. Now, hold the needle with your other hand. Turn the eye of the needle toward the thread that is being held between your fingers. Instead of trying to move the thread into the eye of the needle, this time we do it the other way around. Keep the thread still, then move the eye of the needle toward the thread. Gently push the eye of the needle right into the spot where the thread end is showing. Because the thread is being held firmly by your 2 fingers, it will not flop around or bend downward anymore. When the eye of the needle catches the thread, gently pull the thread end through the back. That means it has been threaded. The good thing about this method is that we do not have to try to control a soft thread end. The 2 fingers help hold the thread more firmly, and the needle is easier to control. You only need to do it slowly a few times and your hand will get used to it. For older people, this method may be easier than the traditional way, because we do not need to make the thread end float in the air and try to guide it into the tiny needle eye. Method 5. Make a needle threader yourself using an old pen and a small electrical wire. The last method is very suitable if your home often needs sewing and mending, or if you want to prepare a tool in advance for older people to use over a long time. You need an old ballpoint pen that is no longer used and a small piece of electrical wire. A type of wire that has a thin metal core inside will be more suitable. When making it, we only need a short piece of wire that is soft enough but still holds its shape. Fold the piece of wire in half to create a small loop at the end. That loop will be the part that goes through the eye of the needle. Then insert the 2 ends of the wire into the pen body, leaving the small wire loop exposed outside at the tip of the pen. Click the pen to hold it in place. That way, we have made a very simple homemade needle threader. When using it, hold the needle and pass the small wire loop through the eye of the needle first. Because the wire loop is firmer than thread, it will pass through the needle eye more easily. After the wire loop has gone through the eye, place the thread end into that loop. Now, simply pull the tool back out. The wire loop will pull the thread along with it and bring the thread through the eye of the needle. Finally, pull the thread through to the length you need, and that is it. This method is very convenient because once you make it, you can use it many times. You can keep it in your sewing box. Whenever you need to sew clothes, attach a button, mend a towel, or fix a small item at home, you can simply take it out and use it right away. If you find these tips useful, save them so you can open them again when needed. You can also share them with your mother, your grandmother, or other family members, especially those who often have difficulty threading a needle. And what about you? How have you usually threaded a needle up to now? If you have an even better tip, please share it in the comments so that Mary Home and everyone can learn from it too. Thank you for watching the video. See you again in the next little tips with Mary Home.